security engineer is a cybersecurity professional focused on the proactive design, implementation, and maintenance of systems and infrastructure to protect an organization's assets. Here's a breakdown of what they do. The core focus of security engineering: building secure systems. Unlike analysts who primarily react to threats, security engineers take an architect-like approach. They design systems from the ground up, with security as a foundational principle. Defense in depth. It's not just about firewalls. They establish multiple layers of protection, covering networks, applications, data, and even physical perimeter security. Keeping pace with threats, security engineers actively research and keep abreast of the latest vulnerabilities, attack techniques, and security best practices. They adapt their defenses accordingly. Typical responsibilities: network security, configuring firewalls, intrusion detection, prevention systems, IDS, IPS, and secure network design to limit attack vectors. Vulnerability management, identifying and patching security flaws in software and configurations. Recommending updates or system changes to reduce risk. Encryption and access controls, enforcing secure data storage and transmission and setting up robust authentication and authorization systems. Security testing, carrying out penetration tests or ethical hacking exercises to expose weaknesses and guide further hardening of systems. Incident response planning, proactively developing procedures and playbooks for the organization to follow in case of a breach. Compliance and standards, ensuring systems align with industry regulations and frameworks, like PCI DSS, HIPAA, or GDPR. How this differs from other cybersecurity roles. Security analysts. Analysts often prioritize monitoring, detection, and triaging events within existing systems. Engineers look more at prevention and building resilience. Penetration testers. Pen testers actively exploit vulnerabilities to expose weaknesses. Security engineers then turn those findings into practical, hardened infrastructure. Developers. While secure coding has become vital, developers focus on software functionality. Engineers have a deeper security-centric focus on entire systems, networks, and user behavior. Key skills of a security engineer: broad technical knowledge, networking, cloud technologies, database security, operating systems, cryptography, etc. Risk assessment mindset, thinking strategically, not just fixing patches but anticipating where attackers might focus. Collaboration and communication, working with IT teams, developers, and management to align security with business goals. Becoming a security engineer. Paths involve a combination of certifications, technical experience, system administration, networking, and demonstrated focus on security principles. TryHackMe has Absolutely. Let's break down security principles, the foundational concepts that guide cybersecurity decision-making and build robust protection. The key security principles. 1. The CIA Triad. Confidentiality, ensuring sensitive information stays accessible to authorized individuals. Integrity, maintaining the accuracy and consistency of data, preventing unauthorized changes. Availability, ensuring systems and data are accessible to authorized users when needed. 2. Least privilege, limiting access to only the bare minimum resources and data an individual needs to do their job. This minimizes the attack surface if an account or system is compromised. 3. Separation of duties, dividing critical tasks or systems amongst several people. This prevents any single point of failure, reduces risks of fraud or accidental system modification. 4. Defense in depth, layering security controls, firewalls, antivirus, encryption, strong passwords, etc. This means an attacker must overcome multiple barriers to succeed. 5. Fail-safe defaults, designing systems that operate in a secure state by default if something goes wrong. Example: a firewall denying all unrequested traffic automatically instead of allowing everything. 6. Don't trust, verify, zero trust mindset, assuming anything within the network, whether internal users or devices, poses a risk. Requires continuous authentication and verification before granting access to resources. 7. Human factor, recognizing people as often the weakest link, encouraging secure behavior through training, awareness campaigns, and phishing simulations. How security principles are applied. Designing systems. When creating a new website, engineers might focus on strong access controls, confidentiality, secure coding to prevent data tampering, integrity, and ensuring redundancy for uptime, availability. Incident response. In a breach, these principles guide actions, isolate compromised devices, least privilege, restore backups to ensure data isn't lost, integrity, and communicate downtime risks to users, availability. Everyday security. Even simple practices like locking computer screens, confidentiality, or being cautious when clicking links, human factor, align with these core principles. Why they matter. Security principles aren't just theory. They provide framework, guides cybersecurity actions, and ensures measures address fundamental risks. Adaptable. Apply to everything from network design to individual user behavior. Create defense culture. Understanding these principles cultivates secure decision-making within organizations. Let me know if you'd like specific examples of how any individual principle translates into practical IT security implementations. The eighth layer of the OSI model is often used humorously or critically to highlight the role of humans, politics, and organizational factors in influencing cybersecurity outside the direct technical model. Here's why. The background. OSI model. This reference framework outlines 7 layers representing the distinct operations in network communication, from physical connections, layer 1, to application data, layer 7. Technical focus. The OSI model helps standardize network technologies and troubleshooting approaches, but largely focuses on the technical implementation of communication. Where the 8th layer, concept fits. The human element. Security breaches often result not from purely technical flaws, but from human errors, social engineering, or miscommunication. This makes the user an unintentional attack vector or the target of deception. Political interference. Regulations, corporate maneuvering, lack of funding, or conflicting business goals may negatively impact the implementation of otherwise perfect technical security solutions. Specific examples of the 8th layer. Phishing. No security tool is 100% foolproof against a user willingly giving up login details due to a persuasive phishing email. Patching failures. A vulnerability patch exists, but if internal approval processes and politics obstruct deployment, that's an 8th layer problem. Shadow IT. When non-IT departments circumvent approved secure platforms for convenience, opening up risks due to unmonitored technologies. Why referencing the 8th layer is useful. Holistic approach. It forces cybersecurity professionals to look beyond the technical, accounting for the unpredictable human factor. Blame versus solutions. It acknowledges that failures shouldn't always fall on technical staff. Sometimes organizational structures, education, or policy adjustments are required. Communicating risk. Explaining the 8th layer to non-technical stakeholders illustrates how the decisions can support or harm security efforts. Important note. While humorous, the 8th layer is not an excuse for technical flaws. Strong base layer security remains paramount. Would you like more examples of where the 8th layer undermines cybersecurity, or how organizations can better manage those people-focused risks? Absolutely not. Using names, addresses, birthdays, and similar personal information as passwords is a big security risk. Here's why. Reasons to avoid personal information in passwords. Predictability. Hackers know people often use this readily available information. They can find names, addresses, and birthdays through social media, data leaks, or public records. Targeted attacks. Attackers can leverage their knowledge about someone to build custom word lists to crack passwords. Think pet names, addresses, hobbies, etc. Password reuse. If you use the same weak password, and most people do, and one website suffers a breach, that leaked information unlocks access to every other account where you reused it. Social engineering. If an attacker has a few clues about you, they might convince support staff to reset your password or trick you into divulging more sensitive details. How to build stronger passwords. Length is king. The longer a password, the harder it is to crack. Aim for at least 12 characters, but ideally even longer. Complexity trumps memorability. Combine uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols. A long, seemingly random string is better than a short, clever word. Unique. Every single account should have a different password. Yes, it's a pain, but critical. Password managers. These tools generate and securely store strong, unique passwords for you, minimizing the need for memorization. Additional tips. Enable two-factor authentication, 2FA. This adds another layer of security by requiring a secondary code alongside your password. Be vigilant of phishing attempts. Always verify a website's URL. Absolutely. Here's how I'd pitch the weakness of using personal information for passwords if I were the adversary. Listen up, folks. When it comes to cracking passwords, your personal life is my goldmine. You humans, so predictable. Let me break down why those so-called memorable passwords are an absolute dream for anyone like me. It's all public, baby. Names, birthdays, your spouse, that adorable doggo. A quick spin through social media and bingo. It's all there. Or hey, old data breaches. Even easier, I get a full menu of options for my password cracking tools. One and done. Bet you reuse the same few passwords. Jackpot. One breach lets me try those precious combos everywhere. Your bank, email, that juicy shopping account. Doors start flying open. Clever, ain't so clever. Think you're sneaky putting your address in reverse or adding your kid's year of birth. Please, we've seen every trick in the book, and our automated tools love patterns. Friendly persuasion. Got some basic info. Watch me sweet talk a clueless customer support representative into resetting that important password, and it's game over. See, using personal details doesn't just make my life easier, it puts your money, your identity, everything up for grabs. Want to save yourself the heartache? Here's a pro tip from the other side. Think like a robot. Go with long, random messes of letters, numbers, and symbols. You won't remember them. Good. That's what password managers are for. Variety is key. Every single account gets a unique password. It's a pain, but trust me, less painful than getting everything you own online ripped away. Do us both a solid, won't you? Make your passwords a nightmare for me. We'll both be better off in the long run. Absolutely. Let's explore Red Team Recon safely and responsibly. Understanding Red Team Recon. Red teaming revolves around testing an organization's security posture from an adversary's perspective. Recon is the crucial first step where Red Team operators define scope, clearly establish what assets are considered in scope for testing, websites, network infrastructure, physical locations, etc., and gather the appropriate permissions and authorization. Gather intelligence, collect extensive information about the target, including company details, technology used, online presence of employees, etc. Identify entry points, search for technical vulnerabilities, outdated software, weak configurations, and social engineering opportunities, phishing targets. Scenario: mid-size healthcare provider. You're part of a Red Team hired by a mid-size healthcare provider. They're primarily concerned with securing sensitive patient data. Your take on recon approaches. Given this scenario, discuss the following. OSINT, open source intelligence. What publicly available sources are valuable? Company website, social media, job postings, regulatory filings. What insights about technology and personnel can you glean? Technical surveillance. Can you use tools like Shodan to see externally facing assets? What do they reveal? Would targeted port scans and vulnerability probes be within the scope of this engagement, or are they too intrusive? Social engineering focus. Is crafting spear phishing emails appropriate at this stage? What pretexts are realistic for healthcare employees? Could physical, tailgating, attempts be done ethically under your rules of engagement? Key considerations. Data sensitivity. Be acutely aware of the need to handle any discovered patient data in accordance with industry regulations and internal policies. Legal and ethical boundaries. Discuss with your team any ethical concerns and stay within authorized limits. Communication with the client. Clear reporting and updates on potential avenues of compromise can aid in timely defenses. Let's start the discussion. What kinds of OSINT sources do you think would be most useful to start investigating the healthcare provider? Absolutely, you're right on target with considering both broad sources and more specific details from OSINT. Let's dive deeper, refining OSINT focus. Company website, technology stack. Look for mentions of the software they use, in job postings, case studies, about us, tech sections. Partner, vendor relationships. Could third-party services they integrate with be a weak point? Physical locations, addresses of clinics, medical offices, and headquarters for future recon. Social media, employee activity. Posts discussing work frustrations can leak internal tool names or reveal security procedures. Company accounts. Posts about new facilities or software rollouts indicate points of change, often less secure during a transition. Job postings. Specific skill requirements. Detailed listings indicate in-house tools or legacy systems that may have known vulnerabilities. Unfilled positions can suggest lack of IT security staff, implying less scrutiny. Regulatory filings, US-focused, SEC filings, for larger providers, sometimes mention IT spending or security initiatives, or lack thereof. HHS breach portal. Sadly, past breaches within the organization offer direct clues to weaknesses. The QR code angle. You hit on a brilliant detail. Let's consider content. Could it lead to an employee portal needing further probing? Or to internal documentation, format. Does the QR code type, size reveal if it's a company-generated system, and thus a potentially enticing target? Shodan's value. It's wise to be cautious about its limitations. Here's what it can help with. Broad system landscape. What kind of servers, software do they expose externally? Are versions woefully out of date? Potential misconfigurations. Open ports meant only for internal use offer avenues in. Third-party exposure. Does a connected cloud service used by the organization reveal a greater attack surface? Always consider legality. No legal limits of gathering info in your location. Passively viewing a company website is different from scraping proprietary data. Attribution. It's easy to attribute an active scan to your red team. OSINT done carefully adds a layer of deniability. False positives. Old info is abundant online. Confirm before making assumptions about current network state. Next question. Let's choose one social media platform as our OSINT deep dive. Where do you think the most valuable employee insights about this healthcare provider might lie? You're absolutely right. Both linked to earlscan.io and BuiltWith can be fantastic tools within the scope of the recon phase of a red team operation, especially during the technical surveillance aspect we discussed. Let's break down how. Link to earlscan.io. Website deep dive. Beyond merely looking at what's visible on the surface of a website, Link to earlscan.io can probe and analyze embedded links and resources. This reveals third-party dependencies, content delivery networks, CDNs, etc., widening the potential attack surface. HTTP requests, responses. This can potentially expose data leakage in poorly handled requests or reveal internal server structure information. Historical scans. If the site's been on link to earlscan.io before, historical data could tell you if known vulnerabilities existed in the past. BuiltWith. Technology fingerprinting. This is BuiltWith's primary purpose. It unveils the web framework, server software, analytics tools, and even specific plugins used. Focused vulnerability research. Once you know their tech stack, this information lets you do far more targeted research into exploits. Trend analysis. Does the use of specific technology imply company size, potential budget for patching, etc.? Important notes. Combined with OSINT, if job postings mention an obscure content management system, CMS, use BuiltWith to confirm, then start hunting for CMS-specific vulnerabilities. Passive nature. Just like Shodan, these tools generally gather information the website is already sending out publicly. Caveats. Evasion. Many websites attempt to mask their true technology footprint to some extent. These tools are a starting point, not definitive. Scope of analysis. Don't just check the main, patient-facing domain. Sites for employee logins, vendor portals, etc., are all targets and may use different tech. Would you like to discuss potential issues when combining these tools with threat intelligence feeds and how threat modeling might then change? Absolutely. Let's craft a new red team recon scenario. Scenario: online marketplace. You're part of a red team engaged by a mid-sized online marketplace platform. They host numerous smaller shops where users can sell and buy goods. The client is worried about financial data theft, credit card details, internal transaction records, fraudulent vendor setup, money laundering, sale of illegal items, targeted attacks on high-value users. Recon focus areas. Here's where you can help them with your insights. 1. Identifying attack surface. Separate vendor dashboards versus main customer areas. How isolated are they? Payment processing flows. Is the marketplace handling this directly, or does it entirely outsource to providers? Which is better from an attacker's perspective? API usage. Can you glean documentation or traffic indicators of extensive API use? These often open a side door for attack. 2. Social engineering angles. Vendor onboarding. How stringent are vetting processes? Could you get a fake vendor account approved with minimal scrutiny? Support forums. How do employees interact with customers and vendors? Potential to gather usable intel for later exploit. Names, procedures, frustrations. Customer sentiment. High rates of scams or fraud would imply loose internal controls worth poking at. 3. Technical weaknesses. Website vulnerability scans. Yes, a little more intrusive, but are they worth sneaking in under the radar? Would focusing on subdomains used by vendors yield interesting results? Data exposure. Search engines sometimes accidentally index sensitive back-end pages. What might get indexed that the company thinks is hidden? Questions for discussion. Where is the line between OSINT and active probing here? This is always a blurry line in red teaming. How aggressive can you get ethically? How can you balance technical recon with a deeper focus on process? Vendor approval and fraud detection likely have manual elements within the company. Assume you see hints of past API-based breaches in public code repositories. How do you report this ethically to the client for remediation before you try to replicate them? Let's get started. Where would you... Absolutely. Let's break down the CIA triad, a foundational model for information security. C. Confidentiality. Focus. Preventing unauthorized access to sensitive data. Why it matters. Protects customer privacy, trade secrets, financial information, and other assets that shouldn't be freely disclosed. Methods. Encryption to scramble data. Strong access controls, passwords, multi-factor authentication. Data classification systems to tag data by sensitivity level. I. Integrity. Focus. Maintaining data accuracy and trustworthiness, ensuring it hasn't been altered or tampered with. Why it matters. Incorrect data leads to bad business decisions, compromises regulatory compliance, and undermines trust in systems. Methods. Hashing to verify data hasn't changed. Digital signatures to ensure authenticity, version control systems for tracking changes, input validation to prevent malicious data injection. Availability, focus, ensuring authorized users can reliably access data and systems when needed. Why it matters: downtime or disruptions can impact customer experience, revenue, and productivity. Methods: redundancy, backup servers, power supplies, load balancing to distribute traffic, disaster recovery plans for quick restoration, denial of service, DOS, prevention. How the CIA triad works together. These three concepts aren't separate. They interplay crucially within security. Security versus usability. Too much focus on confidentiality can impede availability if systems become difficult to access. Threats span the triad. A ransomware attack breaches confidentiality, data is encrypted, integrity may be modified, and availability held hostage. Balanced solutions. Successful security strategies protect all three aspects within reason. Let me know if you'd like examples of attacks impacting Governance and regulation play a crucial role in shaping cybersecurity, privacy, and technology use. Let's break down the concepts and interplay. Governance. Internal structures. Governance sets the policies, processes, and decision-making structures within an organization for managing their data and technology. This includes risk management frameworks to identify and address threats, data handling policies outlining proper collection, use, and disposal practices, incident response plans detailing steps in case of attacks or breaches, roles and responsibilities for assigning cybersecurity ownership, ethical frameworks. Good governance involves making choices grounded in ethical considerations surrounding AI usage, data collection, and algorithm bias. Regulation. External rules. These encompass laws and standards created by various levels of government to protect both consumers and ensure businesses operate according to certain requirements. Key areas include privacy laws, like GDPR, Europe, CCPA, California, and numerous similar laws globally that mandate how organizations collect, store, and utilize personal data. Security standards. Frameworks like NIST and ISO 27001 providing baseline best practices. Compliance may be optional or mandatory, depending on industry. Sector-specific regulations governing bodies in healthcare, HIPAA, or finance, PCI-DSS, set strict rules for data protection. How they intertwine. Regulation shapes governance. Oftentimes, regulation acts as a major driver for internal governance. New laws dictate policy needs, prompting organizations to revise processes. Governance supports compliance. Strong internal governance mechanisms translate to smoother compliance with regulatory requirements. Well-documented procedures make audits less painful. Beyond minimum standards, while essential, compliance alone is not enough. Robust governance fosters proactive security postures exceeding bare minimum legal requirements. Influence on innovation. Both regulation and governance can impact technology adoption rate. Stringent security standards or privacy legislation can slow innovation to some degree. Current challenges. Rapid tech development. Regulation struggles to keep pace, leaving areas with legal ambiguity. Global fragmentation. Diverse laws between countries make things complex for companies operating internationally. Lack of expertise. Not every organization has experts internally to translate regulation into meaningful governance policies. Would you like to Absolutely. Let's delve into identity and access management, IAM. Core concepts. Identity. A digital representation of a person, system, or device within an organization's system. Identities have unique sets of attributes like usernames, employee IDs, or even device identifiers. Access. The permissions and privileges granted to an identity, determining what actions they can take on company resources, accessing files, using applications, etc. Identity and access management, IAM. The systems and processes for creating, managing, and revoking identities within an organization while enforcing appropriate access controls based on those identities. IAM goals. 1. Security. Ensure only the right people have access to the right data, at the right time. This reduces the risk of breaches and unauthorized activities. 2. Efficiency. IAM streamlines user onboarding and offboarding, automating much of the provisioning and deprovisioning of access rights. 3. Productivity. Self-service password resets and streamlined access request processes minimize IT help desk overhead, freeing time for other things. 4. Compliance. IAM facilitates demonstrating compliance with regulations like HIPAA or PCI-DSS through controlled access management and detailed auditing. Key components of IAM systems. Authentication. Verification of an identity, done through passwords, security tokens, or biometrics. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, adds layers of security. Authorization. Once authenticated, deciding what a specific identity is allowed to do, often using role-based access control, RBAC, or fine-grained permissions. Single sign-on, SSO, allows users to authenticate once and seamlessly access multiple resources, improving user experience. User provisioning, deprovisioning, automated setup and termination of user accounts, synchronizing access across connected systems. Auditing and logging, detailed tracking of logins, access attempts, and changes to roles, permissions, crucial for forensics and compliance. Challenges and trends. Complexity. Managing the vast amount of identities and permissions in large organizations. Cloud adaptation. IAM shifts become more complex for cloud-based services and remote workforces. Zero trust. Increasing push for never trust, always verify access models, even on a trusted network. IAM integration with security tools. Combining IAM with tools like SIEM, security information and event management, helps detect unusual activity. Let's discuss. Would you like to explore the difference between authentication and authorization? Or perhaps... Absolutely. Let's dive into threat modeling. Here's a breakdown of its importance, methodologies, and how it fits into a broader security strategy. What is threat modeling? Proactive approach. It is a structured way to identify, understand, and prioritize potential threats to a system, application, or network. Attacker's mindset. The core idea is to think like an adversary, mapping out how they might target your assets and the strategies they could employ. Goal. Develop effective countermeasures in advance, before the threats get real. Why threat modeling matters. Early risk discovery. Find vulnerabilities during design, even before the system is built. hardware issues, operational, supply chain disruptions, process errors, regulatory violations, financial, market fluctuations, investment losses, fraud, strategic, poor decision organization. Utilize existing knowledge, past incidents, and threat intelligence. 2. Risk analysis. Assess the probability of each risk occurring and its potential impact, financial, operational, etc. Use qualitative or quantitative analysis methods. 3. Risk evaluation. Prioritize risks based on their severity and likelihood, creating a risk profile for the organization. Absolutely. Let's explore the world of risk management. What is risk management? Risk management is the systematic process of identifying potential events that can negatively impact an organization's assets, operations, or goals. Analyzing the likelihood and potential consequences of each risk. Prioritizing risks based on their severity. Implementing strategies to mitigate risks or reduce their impact. Monitoring and reassessing risks over time as the risk landscape evolves. Risk categories. Risks can stem from various areas, including technical, cyber attacks, software failures, hardware issues, operational, supply chain disruptions, process errors, regulatory violations, financial, market fluctuations, investment losses, fraud, strategic, poor decision-making, competitive threats, changing customer needs, reputational, damage to brand image due to scandals, data breaches, negative publicity. Why risk management matters. Protecting assets and reputation, reduces losses and safeguards essential resources. Informed decision-making, helps organizations make proactive, risk-aware choices. Competitive advantage, effective risk management enhances resilience and agility. Proactive versus reactive, prevent costly setbacks and crises by addressing threats early. Compliance, meeting regulatory requirements related to risk management is often mandated in many industries. The risk management process. 1. Risk identification. Brainstorm potential threats across all aspects of the organization. Utilize existing knowledge, past incidents, and threat intelligence. 2. Risk analysis. Assess the probability of each risk occurring and its potential impact, financial, operational, etc. Use qualitative or quantitative analysis methods. 3. Risk evaluation. Prioritize risks based on their severity and likelihood, creating a risk profile for the organization. 4. Risk treatment. Choose the best action for each risk, considering avoidance, eliminating the source of risk. Reduction. Taking steps to lower likelihood or impact. Transfer. Sharing risk through insurance or outsourcing. Acceptance. Recognizing a risk may be necessary while monitoring it. 5. Monitoring and review. Risk management is not stationary. Regular reviews and updates adapt to changing conditions. Tools and frameworks. Risk matrix. Visually plots risks based on probability and impact. Risk registers. Detailed tracking of risks, analysis, and mitigation plans. ISO 31000. International standard providing guidelines for risk management. COSO, NIST, and other frameworks offer industry-specific guidance. Let's talk. What areas of risk are you most curious about? Financial, its security, operational. Would you like to discuss how to choose appropriate risk treatment strategies? Let me know where to focus our discussion next. Absolutely. Let's delve into secure network architecture. Here's a breakdown of key principles. Absolutely. Let's delve into secure network architecture. Here's a breakdown of key principles, components, and considerations. Principles of secure network architecture. Defense in depth. Layers of security defenses at various points in the network to slow down attackers and provide redundancy if one layer fails. Least privilege. Grant users and systems only the minimum access necessary to do their jobs. This limits the potential impact of a compromised account. Zero trust. Assume no user or device within or outside the network is inherently trustworthy. Continuously verify identities and permissions. Segmentation. Divide the network into logical zones, e.g., DMZ, production, finance. Restrict traffic flow between them based on need. This contains breaches, visibility and monitoring. Proactive logging and monitoring tools are essential for detecting intrusions, unusual activity, or system events. Essential components. Firewalls. Control traffic flow based on defined rules with next-general firewalls incorporating content filtering, intrusion detection, prevention, and application filtering. Intrusion detection, prevention systems, IPS. Detect and actively block malicious traffic or anomalous behavior across the network. Access control lists, ACLs, rule sets on routers and switches governing inbound and outbound traffic permitted to devices. VPN and encryption, secure remote connections using virtual private networks, VPNs, and ensure sensitive data at rest and in transit is encrypted. Security information and event management, SIEM, collect and analyze log data from multiple sources for centralized monitoring and alerting. Vulnerability scanning and patch management, proactively identify and remediate known software and device vulnerabilities. Design considerations, business needs, understand the organization-specific applications, critical data, and acceptable risk levels to craft a suitable architecture. Usability, overly complex security becomes a user experience issue, potentially making security less effective overall. Balance usability with protection. Threat landscape. Design architecture based on evolving threats. Intelligence feeds and security research help predict attack trends. Compliance. Ensure the design aligns with regulatory requirements as needed. PCI DSS, HIPAA, etc. Additional elements. DMZ, demilitarized zone, isolates publicly facing servers, web, mail, from internal networks for added protection. Honeypots, decoy systems designed to lure attackers and gather intelligence. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, an extra layer of security verification beyond passwords. Endpoint security, protections on end-user devices such as laptops and desktops. Ongoing efforts. Secure network architecture is not a static blueprint. It requires regular reviews and updates. Ensure design keeps pace with emerging threats and business changes. User education and awareness. Train employees on best practices, phishing avoidance, and good cyber hygiene. Discussion ideas. Would you like to explore how zero trust principles specifically would change network architecture? Absolutely. Since we touched on risk management earlier, let's dive deeper. Here are some key areas to explore. Risk treatment strategies. Let's discuss the four main approaches to manage identified risks. Avoidance. Eliminating the risk entirely by removing the associated activity or process. Example. prohibiting storage of sensitive data on easily portable USB drives to avoid data leakage risks. Reduction, mitigation, taking steps to lessen either the likelihood of the risk occurring or its potential impact. Example, implementing network segmentation to contain a breach if it happens. Transfer, shifting some or all of the risk to an external party such as through insurance or outsourcing specific operations. Example, hiring a managed security service provider, MSSP, to handle incident response. Acceptance, acknowledging certain risks exist while setting contingency plans if they become reality. Examples, accepting minor operational risks if the likelihood of occurrence is deemed low enough to justify the cost of preventative measures. Choosing the best approach. No single strategy is universal. Factors influencing your choice include cost-benefit analysis. How expensive is mitigating the risk versus the potential losses if it materializes? Risk tolerance. The level of risk the organization is willing to accept. Regulatory requirements. Some mandates can force you toward risk avoidance or extensive mitigation. Business impact. Does the risk significantly disrupt core operations? If so, more extreme strategies might be considered. The importance of communication and documentation. Transparency. Communicate risk management decisions and priorities with leadership and stakeholders for buy-in and support. Risk registers. Track risks thoroughly, detailing assessment, mitigation, and current status over time. This creates institutional memory. Regular reviews. Continuously reassess risks for changes in circumstances, ensuring your management plan evolves alongside threats. Questions to ponder. Can you think of an example risk where transfer would be the most likely strategy? Why would small businesses and large corporations prioritize risk treatment strategies differently? Where else would you like to focus our risk management discussion? Absolutely. Let's dive into strategies for Linux system hardening. Remember, hardening aims to reduce the system's attack surface and increase its overall security posture. Here's a breakdown of key actions, along with some considerations. Baseline hardening, updates and patches. Stay vigilant with security updates and patches using Linux's native package management tools, apps,